So you don't have to be a mean girl to be a girl's girl, but you also can't be too much of a nice, affirming girl to be a girl's girl. This was something that I wasn't sure if it was going to ruffle feathers when I talked about it, but I just felt like because of the climate that we're in, it needed to be discussed. Typically, what I see in online spaces, i.e., I'm talking about social media, we see the girl's girl thing and we see it as you're not a girl's girl if you're bringing other girls down, which I completely agree with. But I think that the generation that we are currently upbringing has this disillusioned idea of what it means to put a girl down. So there is this idea that you should affirm your friends, you should lift your friends up, you should encourage your friends. But we don't see too much talking about correction. And the reason that I think this is so important is because if we affirm, and we only affirm, people don't really get a chance to grow. And what ends up happening is people self-destruct. I remember times in my life when I had friends, right? And I think that because of my character and the way that I am, sometimes it can be intimidating for people to feel like they can tell me the truth or for people to feel like they can go against me. But if you feel like that, I don't know how we're friends, right? But there have been times in my life where I reflect and I'm like, why didn't they tell me about myself in that situation? Like, why did they affirm me? Why did they encourage me to do that? Right. And it's so much disappointment that comes with that because you have to sit full circle and be like, okay, did they not know? Because it's different when they didn't know and you didn't know and y'all were doing the best that you could with that information. But sometimes people know and they just watch you go down that road. And I feel as though for me personally, where I am in my life, I would rather lose you as a friend because you said that you didn't like the correction that I offered you than to be your friend and to stand by you while you're doing something foolish and destructive. And that does not mean that I will not continue to be your friend and love you if you choose to do something destructive. Because yes, being a good friend is this idea of I'm there for you, I support you. Even when you're going through it, I'm there being supportive. It just means that I don't condone foolishness, right? And so putting another woman down, we do have that confused. Like sometimes we look at putting a woman down as if a woman comes out and says something like, we should not be doing this. Stop wearing these types of clothes. Why are you going out the house with a bonnet on? Sometimes the delivery of it can feel like it is turning you off, but we have to also learn, one, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater, okay? Because sometimes, even if girls or women or their delivery is a little off, there is still some validity in what it is that they're saying. Now, I am a firm believer that you don't have to be super aggressive unless somebody's life is in danger. And one of the examples that I use for this is if my children are playing and somebody runs in the street after a ball and a car is flying up the road at 60 miles per hour, I'm not going to stand on the side of my house and say, baby, get out of the street. What did mom tell you about that? Please, come on. No, I'm running full force at you and I'm yelling, get out of the street. Get out of the street right now, right? Because your life is in danger. So sometimes you might have a friend, maybe they've been telling you the same thing. And sometimes, let me also say, I know that we don't always like unsolicited advice. That's fine from strangers. But if you have a friend and that friend is doing something that they should not be doing and you're watching them do it and you never give any warning, you never say, look, friend, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I really don't think you should be doing that. I love you. I'm going to support you. I'm your girl. But what you're doing is not a good look. And sometimes even that, people are like, she's judging me, she's this, she's that. There is such a thing as righteous judgment. There is such a thing as correcting people. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. It doesn't always feel good. But if we go through life just chasing what feels good and just wanting people to affirm our good decisions and never wanting somebody to say, I don't think you should have done that, we won't advance. In fact, we'll just be living, like I mentioned, in this loop of failure, in this loop of falling on our face, and we're never going to be able to get out of that if we don't allow people to correct us. And sometimes that correction can come from a stranger. It can. You just have to learn how to take what applies to you, right? So sometimes you learn lessons and they sting. Like, have you ever gone to church and this pastor has no idea what you're going through, but he calls your number. He says something so specific to your situation. He does not know you. That's not something where you get offended because he's calling you out. That is, ooh, I don't know how he knew that. I don't know how God put that on his heart, but that was for me. And it does sting and it makes me very uncomfortable, but I'm going to take that and put it in my pocket and figure out how to deal with it. So sometimes you might watch a video on the internet, and this, I always know when a video served its purpose, when people get triggered and start to deflect. But then I also know that the people who get triggered and start to deflect are the people that unfortunately are missing the message and they need to hear it the most. And so sometimes, like, I'm going to use the bonnet example. Let's say a woman gets on the internet, and this is like, to me, the women who take time to talk to the young girls and the older women or whatever, whoever they're speaking to about these types of topics, people like to reduce it to everybody should just mind their business. But no, that's not true. There's this book called The Basic Black, and this book talks about the things and like the forgotten practices that we used to have that we have moved away from and how important they are. And it goes into everything from like, hey, don't go to somebody's house empty-handed. And it goes into the history of that. Like, why did people do that? Why is so important? Even down to like how you dress and how you present yourself. Now, I'm a firm believer in being authentic, being true to yourself. But I also think that there is a level of appropriate behavior that we should encourage and a level of inappropriate behavior that we should discourage. Using the excuse that I'm comfortable, I don't want to mess up my hair, this is how I'm going to go out. You can put a scarf on, you can wrap your hair, but walking outside with a bonnet on, that is never appropriate unless you are in your house and it's on fire and you just running out your house, right? But like going to the airport, all of these things, we can make ourselves presentable. And I am a firm believer in a head wrap. When I'm having a bad hair day, when I'm conditioning my hair and I have to leave the house, whatever is going on, I am not walking out my house with a bonnet on. It does not take that long to take the bonnet off, put on a scarf, like I said, touch up your hair really quickly if you have time. If you don't, let's be ladies and let's take time to invest in ourselves. One of the other things that I say, and this is on a minimalism note, this is on a note of like, lowering your consumption and still being practical and effective. I talk about making your wardrobe more practical, getting fewer items and making those items things that work well with other things in your closet, because the more you can synchronize your wardrobe, the more you can set yourself up for quick success. A lot of us have trouble getting dressed in the morning and we feel like it's such a chore to pull ourselves together because we just have too much going on. Even the women who, like, I don't wear makeup regularly. I barely wear makeup. And when I do, it's like tinted foundation or something like that, just to put on really quickly, some little mascara. I might draw some, fill in my eyebrows, and I'm gonna put on some lip gloss. And I feel like that is made for me because I just need something that takes 5-10 minutes on top of what I normally do. And if you can't take 5 to 10 minutes to get yourself together before you leave the house, you have bigger issues, right? And this is one of the things where I'm saying that delivery might hit somebody and they might be like, well, you don't know what I'm going through. I'm going through depression. I'm going through anxiety. It's not meant to minimize you. I'm being so sincere when I say that if you don't have 5 to 10 minutes to invest in yourself, to get yourself looking put together before you leave the house, you have bigger problems. One of them is probably time management, regardless of whatever else is going on, regardless of depression and anxiety, because we also have to stop allowing these things to grab us and take hold of our complete life. Some people have been struggling with depression and anxiety for so long simply because they will not turn those things over to God, simply because they enjoy the benefit of not having to be accountable and responsible for those things. We all have our ebbs and flows of emotion, but there are some people who are walking through life crippled by anxiety and depression and all of these other diagnoses because they refuse to be set free from these things. And one of the most important things that I think we also need to take into account when we have these conversations is that sometimes we're causing our own depression and anxiety. And it's not always super easy to get over right away. But here's what I mean. Your anxiety and depression is causing you to not clean up, right? To not take care of your environment, which is fair. But when you're not feeling that, when you come out of that, do you do everything that you can to prevent yourself from spiraling again? Simple things. Just if you can only make it out of bed today, get up and open those curtains and go for a walk. You'll feel a little bit better. And I'm not even going to dive too deep into that because that's not what this video is about. But that is my girls advice for today. If you're struggling with some things, if it's postpartum depression, and I remember like having a baby is no joke. Even with a full supportive community, it can still be hard. It can still be a lot. You're battling with yourself. You're telling yourself about your appearance and how you look, and you're having self-doubt, and you're having trouble getting out of the bed. You don't want to eat. Your appetite is different. This baby is keeping you up. It's a lot going on. That is understandable. Nobody's trying to harp on you for what it is that you're going through. Nobody's trying to attack you for going through these things. What I am actually saying is, okay, we have conditions in life, but we also have to continue living as best as we can. And we have to take better care of ourselves, because the problem with using those things as an excuse, not OCD, people don't use that as an excuse, ADD and all of these other things, you end up allowing yourself access to just not perform because of these things. Instead of saying, I struggle and I suffer with these things, let me try my best to minimize these symptoms by taking care of myself as best I can. Because some people are going through depression simply because they don't feel good about themselves. And then if you continue to not take care of yourself, you're not going to feel good about yourself. Yes, being down, like I said, having your days where you sulk and you're just like so internal and you just want to bundle up in bed. Sometimes that's going to happen. But we also have to say, okay, I have to get up. I have to wash my face. I have to get out of this door. I have to go do something to take care of me. I cannot let this overcome me. I need to pray and I need to ask God to help me to lift this off of me, right? But instead of that, what we end up doing is, if you hear somebody say, hey, take off your bonnet. You know, when you go outside, girl, wash your face and do something to your hair. We tend to say, well, not everybody has time to put extensions in and put on a wig and braid their hair and wash their natural hair, because natural hair is hard and I'm depressed and nobody has the money to go and get their nails done. And it's like, why do we go to extremes? Who told you that you had to have a full set of nails, a lace front, a bust down with a middle part, your fanciest ball gown, 6-inch heels, walking out the house, makeup beat to the guy? Like, who told you that that was what you had to do? And why did you hear that when somebody said, put a little effort and energy into your appearance? And I'm starting to realize that it's because people don't like that type of accountability. People don't like that type of advice, right? So going back to what I was saying about, you can give these pieces of advice without being a mean girl. And this is what I also think is very important. Although I do think that a lot of the women who have pushback and say, well, yeah, but they have to say it nicely. Sometimes even when people say things nicely, you still don't like it. You just don't want nobody telling you nothing. And if that's you, I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear anything else that you have to say today. Okay. But yes, there is a way to deliver these messages. There is a way to be polite. There is a way to demonstrate that I'm being loving and I'm well intentioned with this. And oftentimes to me, it is saying, it's affirming people first. Look, you know, I love you, and I'm going to tell you this. My dad does that really well. He'll say, you know how I feel. You know, you know, I care about you. I got to tell you this. My dad has always been very good at that. And he going to tell you like straight up. He ain't going to sugarcoat nothing. You might cry. You might have hurt feelings, but he's going to tell you. And then he's going to be like, you can do whatever you want with that information. But here it is. I have delivered it to you. And I think that sometimes there are some women who are like, well, I'm just being honest. I'm just saying what needs to be said. And sometimes the delivery can be nasty, right? And the reason that we have to be very aware of the type of delivery that we give is because we don't want to be mean girls, and we don't want to come off condescending, and we don't want to come off holier than thou. But on the other side of that is you have to be able to take firm correction, firm, solid advice, firm, girl, what are you doing? Because a good friend should be able to tell you in that way and you receive it. And that's the reason why I also say sometimes it's best to know when it's your place to say something. But if you're good friends with somebody, it's always your place to say something. Maybe not right there in that moment, because I'm also a firm believer in support your people. And then when y'all get to a point where you're alone, go ahead and correct them. And sometimes you don't even need to support them. You just need to stand there, because if they're doing something that is wrong, don't sit there and support them in that, but pull them to the side and let them know what's going on. But I think that one of the reasons that some of us are struggling so much in our lives and why we find ourselves in these downward spirals where we just can't get out of it. We can't advance. No matter what we do, our finances are not improving. No matter what we do, relationship after relationship after relationship is toxic. It's terrible. It's because we're not listening to people. It's because we always think that somebody's jealous of us. It's because we think, well, I'm not going to listen to that because she shouldn't have said it to me like that. Girl, if somebody is trying to save my life, I don't care how they say it. Yeah, like I said, don't hurt my feelings on purpose. Don't be mean. Don't put me down. Don't tell me I'm stupid because I keep going back to him, right? Don't say it like that. But you also have to understand that if you're the person that is on the receiving end of this advice, think about the perspective of the people around you. If you have had a girlfriend that said you're stupid for keep going back to this man, maybe she has limited vocabulary, and maybe she's telling you that because you truly are being idiotic. What are you doing with this man? You are so valuable. You are so beautiful. You are so intelligent. You have so much going for yourself. Why are you with him? Maybe she can't say that. And maybe she's tired of watching this cycle of you being abused and mistreated. And maybe she's taking it personally and she's like, I'm tired of it. And that's the only way that she could formulate it. So we also have to be sensitive to that. Like, how long have people been standing by watching you sabotage yourself? How long have your friends been standing there watching you do things that are destructive? How long have they seen and experienced you put yourself in the same situation over and over and over again? And how good of a friend would they be if they just stood there and say, not my business? Because I firmly believe that people who watch you go through these cycles and watch you suffer, and they know better and they have perspective that can help you, but they don't say it because they're afraid of the backlash. Those are not your people. Those are not your friends. Think of your parents. Are your parents passive like that? Or when you were growing up, if you had good parents, they corrected you. They didn't tell you what you wanted to hear all the time. They punished you. There were consequences for your bad decisions. Those are people who love you, because the person who does not love you is not going to correct you. And I also want to add that you're a fool if you don't want to be corrected. And I didn't say that. The Bible did. Only a fool despises correction. That's why I love Proverbs so much too. Like, one of the things I tell people are always like, oh, you're so wise. Girl, glory be to God. Because he gave us his word. And if we don't read his word, we're all fools. And we will perish for lack of knowledge. And so we don't know what we don't know. And yes, we should give people grace. And yes, we should be understanding. And yes, we should give advice and feedback and correction in love. But we should also just not be stupid. We should also not be hard-hearted. We should also understand, if you do a good job selecting the people around you and you sit there and say, everybody's jealous of you, everybody's hating on you, it's time to sit and think about what is going on here. What is the real problem? Is the real problem that people are hating on you and they're jealous, or you just don't want anybody to tell you anything? And where has that gotten you? Exactly where has that gotten you? Where have you gotten on that cycle of not wanting to be corrected? So yes, sometimes it's in a delivery. I always say it's not what you say, it is how you say it. But I also want to say that if people give it to you ice cream style and you still can't take it, you're the problem. Because if somebody is being sweet and they lay it in on their sandwich style, they're giving you the compliments, they're lifting you up, they're telling you what you did right, and they're like, yeah, but we need to also address this. And you're like, y'all always criticizing me, are they? And what need do you have for community if you're always right? So yes, you do not have to be a mean girl to correct something, right? But we also need to learn to have a bit of thicker skin where we're not so sensitive about things. And I tell y'all this as a person who is sensitive. And I have had correction over the course of my life where, and sometimes it's from my husband, sometimes it's from my parents. I don't want to listen right away because I tend to be very stubborn. But I can take those words and let them resonate. And I can be like, you know what? I didn't like the way that you said that. I remember, like, we have a system now of how, like, we talk to each other and how we take feedback. And people know that I am very sensitive and I'm working on that, right? But even in my sensitivities, I have to understand these people are only telling me this because they love me. And so when you're a very sensitive person, you can't just walk around like, I don't want nobody telling me nothing. I don't have to listen to people. You have to actually be willing, especially from the people who are closest to you and know your situation and know what's going on. You have to be willing to allow them to speak on those situations when they see something that's wrong, right? So Again, this is not me saying you could talk to people any kind of way. This is not me saying that you should allow people to talk to you any kind of way. But it is me making an advocate for both sides of this, because I have seen people say, well, yeah, you can say that, but some people choose to be honest and mean, and that's just cruel and unnecessary. And it is. But most of the time, people are being honest, and even if it's not broken down so much like you're talking to a baby, people feel like it's harsh. We can still be adults and take correction from people. We have to assume the best out of the people closest to us. We have to give people the benefit of the doubt. And we have to be able to say, you know what, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I'm going to sit with that. But next time, I would really like for you to say it a little bit different. Like, you don't have to be that harsh, friend. But what we do is we take offense, and then we throw out the valuable words that people have given to us simply because we didn't like the way that they were said. So there's a little bit of balance on that. And I just wanted to elaborate on that this week, because the post that I did get a lot of traction. And I did see some of those responses saying, you know, well, if you're only correcting me, then it's like this. You shouldn't offer unsolicited advice. You can't be a mean girl, because like I said, you can never really fully say something without there being some caveats, without people disagreeing, without people invalidating it. What I said was very valid. You are not a girl's girl if all you do is hype people up and validate them. That is part of it. But you actually have to be responsible and also give them advice that's going to make them be accountable to themselves. That's going to show them, like, I don't think this was the best decision. I think this was really reckless. I think this was irresponsible. And you also have to understand, too, when you're giving that advice, like I said, expand your bandwidth, expand on your vocabulary and your descriptions, because sometimes it helps to say something like, I'm really disappointed in that decision that you made because I expect more from you because you have a track record of greatness. But sometimes we don't do that. We're just like, that was stupid. Why would you do something so stupid? And we leave it at that without giving that. And honestly, that should be enough. That should be enough from people you love and know. But sometimes it's not. So you also have to affirm people. And I try this so much with my children, where before I reprimand them, I'm like, do you know why I'm disappointed that you did that? Because I know that that's not who you are. And I know that you have a high record of achievement. I know that you have a standard of behaving in this way. So when you did this, it really caught me off guard, because that's not like you at all. Is that who you are? Right? And so that softens the blow a little bit. It still hurts because it's like, oh, mom's disappointed in me. But you can do the same thing with your friends. You can tell them, if that man is no good, girl, you got this going on. You work at this job. You spent this amount of time in school. You are beautiful. You have this going for yourself. You got this, you got this, you got this. What are you doing with this man? But sometimes all you say is, he ain't no good. I don't know why you with him. You stupid. You see the difference in the two? You're saying the same thing, but you're making a person feel low when you leave it at the one. So you have to kind of learn to work on your delivery too. But in either case, no matter what the delivery is, let's learn to take correction from the people who love us. See you in the next one.